Okay, so Lanyon's convention is dated as the 9th of January, which is this day, I believe, before Jekyll lost his mind, right? But 4 days prior to Lanyon writing this, okay? Now, I want to write that Lanyon describes Jekyll as a colleague and old school companion. That's the nicest thing he'll say about Jekyll, because Lanyon, as jolly as he is, does not put up with nonsense. You know how your dad, when you try to talk to him about something serious, and they're all like, oh, well, you better figure it out, and you're like, that's what I'm talking to you about right now, Dad. What the fuck? But that's my perspective as a woman, and I'm not sure if men deal with this too. I know my dad yells at you when you're holding the flashlight, he's fixing something. I believe I am blessed as a woman. Who knows? Or maybe I have been cursed. Jekyll's letter, dated for the 10th of December of that year, 18-something. And first off, this is strange, because this letter is dated for the 9th, and yet we're reading for 10th. Why is this post-dated? Why is this post-dated? Why is this dated for the next day? Is that even the right way to say it? Post-dated? Am I saying that right? I don't know. It doesn't matter, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, on the 10th of December, 18 da-da-da.
Dear Lanyon, you are my oldest friend, and although we may have differed at times on scientific questions, I cannot remember, at least on my side, any break in our affection. There was never a day when, if you said to me, Jekyll, my life, my honor, my life again, my reason, depend on you, I would not have sacrificed my left hand if it was to help you. Lanyon, my life, my honor, my reason are all at your mercy.
Oh, we're not saying life twice again? Okay. Either I wrote that down as a typo, or he actually wrote that down. But we're not going to assume who's at fault here. We'll say it's both of us.
If you fail me tonight, I am lost. You might suppose, after this preface, that I am going to ask for something dishonorable to grant. Judge for yourself.
Which is just like, why would you ask that question? Why would you even stipulate a question like that if that ain't the answer? You know what I mean? It's like you listen to someone talk and you don't say anything. You just let them keep going. And the more they talk, the more you hear what they're actually saying. And I tend to be one of those people who, like, is really good at reading in between the lines. Because, like, I don't know why. I just notice people never really say what they mean. They always speak around shit. Whereas me, I'm not smart enough to do that. So I just blur out whatever pops in my head. And then a mob runs me out of town, which is never fun. I don't like the fact that he already knows that this is something dishonorable, but he's trying to make it sound like, oh, maybe it's not as dishonorable. It is, Jekyll. It is. It is. All right, let's continue.
I want you to postpone all other engagements for tonight. Even if you were summoned to the bedside of an emperor.
So if he's given a ceremony, Lanyon is, to save the fucking world, he should give that up to help his friends, who's dealing with the chemical compound of strange attributes, I will say. You know what I mean? It's just,
I want you to postpone all other engagements for tonight. Even if you are summoned to the bedside of an emperor, to take a cab unless your carriage should be actually at the door.
Well, where else would his carriage/car be?
And with this letter in your hand for consultation, do drive straight to my house. Poole, my butler, has had his orders. You will find him waiting for your arrival at the locksmith. The door of my cabinet is then to be forced, and you are to go in. To open the glazed press, letter E, I don't know what that means, on the left hand, breaking the lock if it be shut, and to draw out, with all of its contents as they stand, the fourth drawer from the top, or which is the same thing, the third from the bottom. In my extreme distress of mind, I have a morbid fear of misdirecting you. But even if I am in error, you may know the right drawer by its contents. Some powders, a file, a paper book, somewhere. I was reading some, I can't fucking remember. This drawer, I beg of you to carry back with you to Kaddish Square exactly as it stands. This is the first part of the service, of course. Now for the second, should you be back? If you set out at once on the receipt of this, long before midnight, but I will leave you that amount margin, not only in fear of one of those obstacles that can never be prevented nor foreseen, but because an hour when your servants are in bed is to be preferred for what will then remain to do. At midnight then, I have to ask you to be alone in your console, to admit with your own hand into house a man who will present himself in my name, and to place in his hands the drawer that you have brought with him from my cabinet. Then you will have played your part and have earned my gratitude completely. 5 minutes afterwards, if you insist upon an explanation, you will have understood that these arrangements are of capital importance, and that by the neglect of one of them, fantastical as they must appear, you might have changed your conscience with my death or a shipwreck of my reason. Confident as I am that you will not trifle on this appeal, my heart sinks and my hands tremble at the bare thought of such a possibility. Think of me in this hour, in this strange place, laboring under the blackness of distress that no fancy can exaggerate, yet well aware that if you will but punctually serve me, my troubles will roll away like a story that is told. Serve me, my dear Lanyon, and save me. And your friend H.J.
stands for Henry Jekyll. Oh, there's a P.S. part.
P.S. I have already sealed this up with a fresh terror struck upon my soul. It is possible that the post office may fail me and this letter not come into your hands till tomorrow morning. In that case, Lanyon, do my errand when it shall be most convenient for you in the course of a day, and once more expect my messenger at midnight. It may then already be too late, and if that night passes without event, you will know that you will see the last of Henry Jekyll.
Okay, so that's the entire letter. I'm sorry I interrupted some, but like even reading back on that, I'm just like, what the fuck is this gaslight guilt trip that I'm paying attention to right now? Can we all just sit here and appreciate the fact that none of us decided to tear out our hair or even dye our hair color again as a trauma response to that god-awful guilt trip of a letter? Like, I'm proud of us. You should be proud of us too. My life and honor. Like, what the fuck is that, asshole? What an ass. Like, you already told him that this is some dishonorable stuff in the letter. If I were Lanyon, I would have looked at that letter and been like, absolutely not. There's a lot of things I assess that he doesn't really think about until later, either during or after certain things that he's done. So this letter, in case you were raised with both parents who love you and have never encountered a manipulative person in your life, Jekyll is asking Lanyon to hire a locksmith to break into his house and steal some shit. Why? Why doesn't Jekyll get it? Why is he acting like if he can't get his stuff, he's going to sleep big? Why is he asking Lanyon, who can only handle him in small doses? And not Utterson, the man who won't leave him alone despite all the hints? Why does he have so many fucking requests? Why is there a guy coming to get this stuff? But he won't go get the stuff from Jekyll's house. You understand what I mean? It's kind of weird you want me to go in midnight to get your shit, just to wait for some dude to come by the house to get that shit. Like, if you can write me, why can't you go out where, I don't know, it's just, also, something I just thought about as I'm going over this, did they not do addresses? Like, postage? Or, I don't know what like, is this around the same time as, like, cowboys with, like, mail or whatever? Like, did postal addresses even exist? Or did people just know where to go? Because there wasn't many people. I don't know. Oh, also, if Lanyon and Jekyll have been friends for so long, why is Jekyll acting like he doesn't, like, know Pool's name? Lanyon, I mean. Why is he telling Lanyon who Pool is? Maybe it's just a different setup with the lingo or whatever. But that was kind of a slight, like, oh, so you think Lanyon doesn't know who Pool is? Pool's worked for you, he said, for like over 20 years. But now you're gonna act like Lanyon, who's been your old-time friend, doesn't know your fucking butler. Like, does he not come over to your house at all? Because he's tired of your shit? Because that's weird. Because he comes to parties and shit. He was just at a party with you and Utterson the other day. The fuck? Like, am I tripping? Why doesn't he just have Pool do all of this? Why didn't he just have someone deliver it somewhere else if he can't do it himself? That's what I'm kind of curious about. Why not hire somebody to go make the delivery to that hotel since he was so concerned and shit, right? I don't know. I just asked a question. Anyway, I don't have any of these answers. Well, actually, I do because I read the book, but I have to pretend to be like you and not know anything because of the suspense and blah, blah, blah and stuff. So, you know, I don't know. Also, mind you, as I said before, Lanyon wrote his date as the 9th. Jekyll wrote his as the 10th. And I feel like this distinction is showing perhaps that Lanyon, after this incident, feels almost stuck in time and possibly hasn't felt any time. Could be from knowing he's about to die or because he is dying that he no longer is concerned with being correct. I can't tell which one it is. I just thought it was funny how the two dates did not match. Also, you have to remember, Jekyll and Lanyon would butt heads because Lanyon is more pragmatic and practical than Jekyll, and he sees Jekyll as way too interested in mystical mumbo jumbo to be taken seriously, despite knowing each other all these years. He's always had this looking down at Jekyll in contempt sort of way to him. Writing a letter with a date that predates a letter from Jekyll, even though Jekyll showed up first, maybe says something about Lanyon's state of mind when he was writing all this down. Even though he hasn't much to say, his disdain for Jekyll has affected him away to the point where he's a little bit broken. He's a little bit broken from the inside out. No, not good. No bueno. But we find out our answer later on as we go on with this narrative, right? Now, as Lanyon continues on with his incident report, the first thing he says is that he's pretty sure that Jekyll is insane at this point, to which I agree. Jekyll is definitely a shallow, deep motherfucker in all the ways you could think. Well, Lanyon didn't feel like being practical enough to protect himself, and he decided, you know what, this is for my friend. This is for my friend. This is for my friend. And he gets him to do exactly what his friend's asking for. Mind you, if you've never dealt with somebody who's on some substances, fear not, neither have I. Just kidding. Definitely. I don't know anybody who hasn't, but this is one of the scenarios where it's like, might be rarer than it is in regular time today. So Lanyon eventually arrives at Jekyll's place with the locksmith and goes to grab the drawer after Poole let him up there or whatever, noting that the contents inside are very neat and organized. Oh yeah, Poole was already there waiting for him. He had his own letter with instructions too. My bad. For some reason I didn't write that in here, and I should have, but Poole was already there. The locksmith showed up with Lanyon, and they were kind of comparing notes a little bit to be like, what the fuck? This is my instructions, those are your instructions, okay? They get the shit out. It's very neat, very organized, and he found himself fighting off the intrusive thought of just shaking the fuck out of the shit. Wait, no, my bad. That was my intrusive thought. What happens if I shake all this fucking stuff? Is Jekyll gonna be mad? It'd be funny if I tripped. Oh wait, no, I can't do that. That's supposed to be my friend, my bad. Something else he noticed was a phial with white powder, a bottle half full of some blood red colored liquid, and a book with a list of entries. Some of those entries had a single word, double, written in 6 times in the hundreds of entries, including one very early on with several remarks following that said, total failure. Finally, Lanyon found what he was looking for and took it home to wait for the guest being sent by Jekyll, after which he started using his brain, started asking the exact same fucking questions I asked after reading that letter. Dude, I haven't read this book in 3 months and totally forgot about this. It's been like over a year since I've written in the script for the 4th time minus the clean install and locking myself out of my home directory twice. I didn't remember any of this. So is Lanyon, as brilliant as he is, doesn't even bother questioning breaking into someone's house until after the robbery? He'd have to be put to sleep just in case, but that's beside the point. But yeah, even Lanyon is wondering why Jekyll didn't send his colleague who needed to come pick this up to do this instead of Lanyon. It actually didn't make sense once he thought about it. And then the more he thought about it, the more he was thinking that Jekyll was indeed nuts and indeed needed committed. I just don't understand why he didn't ask all this shit before doing this, but I guess this is the dark side of the power of friendship or whatever. So Lanyon is waiting on the Uber dude to come and get this special drawer of stuff. He doesn't know about it, making sure that he had a gun handy just in case shit goes down, which indeed it does when the clock strikes midnight and someone comes a-knocking on the door. Not like the police, but very gently, like someone didn't want to be noticed making noise whilst making noise. You know, they whispered loudly. That's Have you ever read something like that that's just completely contradiction? He loudly whispered. She quietly screamed. He mustered up his courage despite his fear. It's kind of weird how in writing you can make contradictions sound like they make sense until you read them out loud, and it's like, wait a minute. Like, not like one of those where you don't understand a sentence. It's more like one of those where you're like, am I not comprehending what the fuck I just... God, he's as brave as he is cow. What the fuck does that mean? Like, sometimes I'll just look at a book and I'll read something and I'll just be like, what is this? Like, sometimes I think it's by dyslexia, but I've gone over this book way too many times. Over a period of, like, 2 years, I'll say. Because, like, honestly, it's going on, like, probably 3 since I moved. Because that's when the first one part came out. So for 3 years, I've been back and forth on this motherfucker. It doesn't mean anything else I do is going to take that long. It's just this one took me a minute because I've been distracted and such. My bad. But it's always interesting. It's always funny to me when people make writing choices and then I read them and I can't tell if it's me or them. So Lanyon's waiting for this dude in his Uber to come and get the special drawer of stuff he doesn't know what about or what it's for, but he wants to make sure that his gun's handy in case shit goes down, which it usually does. Clock strikes midnight, someone's at the door, not knocking like the police. Mind you, Lanyon's got the revolver in hand in case he needs to put a cap in a young nigga's ass, and I am 100% Team Lanyon with this weird horror story. He's the only character I really liked in this. Others got on my nerves because, like, it felt like he didn't do enough investigating. I don't like be sure to describe Lanyon because the cartoon that I found, the cartoon when I watched when I was on Nickelodeon from when I was a kid, the only character I feel like matches the book is Lanyon because he's still a fucking dick to Jekyll. I can just see it now. Everyone else has a weird, different personality, but after I go over to cartoon, we'll go over that eventually. Lanyon goes to the door and sees a small man crouched down behind the pillars of his house. And he asks if the dude is from Jekyll, and dude said, yup. With some weird gesture the book doesn't describe very well, but it was clear the dude was paranoid before entering Lanyon's place, looking to make sure that nobody is around while you're moving. This is always a good speaking of someone's character, especially if there was some policeman, which there happened to be not far off, and that the dude was worried that the cops would actually see him. It's great to know that Jekyll is a good judge of character, and he checks people. I mean, this is a man who's running with an unaliver, apparently. Now, Lanyon happens to notice this as well, along with the fact that this dude gave him the heebie-jeebies. He kept his hand on his weapon like a man, that's for sure. And then when the dude finally got into some light in his consulting room, Lanyon could physically see what it was about dude that bothered him so much. When he was first around the dude, he thought it was just some personal fuck this guy attitude. But as he writes his confession, he knows that currently the dude bothered his spirit, and it's more honorable not to trust the guy than anything else. First of all, the clothing the dude wore was way too big and obviously didn't belong to him, considering he didn't look like he could keep a job, though Les had money to acquire such expensive clothing at that, although the clothing was somewhat familiar. Dude had his pants leg rolled up so he wouldn't be tripping everywhere, looking like that one guy from Loopers. You know that dude who, like, his younger self was used to, like, get him to come back so they could take him out in order to close a loop or whatever. But in reality, it doesn't make sense because it's like, okay, but if you have his younger self here and you're, like, amputating their limbs one by one so it'll affect his older version of himself, how would he run? Yeah, I mean, just think about it. If he's 50, but you took his legs at 20, and somehow that's reflecting, how would he run? And how does that make any sense? Because I feel like it isn't even the same person. How do you know they're from the same exact timeline? That doesn't even make any sense. You could just be pulling shit out of the air. I don't know. Loopers was weird. Loopers was really weird. But it just reminds me of that. Now, the coat he wore was huge, and his whole chest was out. Mainly because the collar hung so much off him. It's like your 5-year-old wearing your 7-foot-tall father's clothing. It's just like, what are you doing? You're not even adorable at that. You're just getting wrinkles and everything. Look, you're dragging your kneecaps into the end of your pants leg on the floor. Roll that shit up, son. You got clothes that was way too big for him. Lanyon thinks that he should have found this hilarious, but it came off more as eerie and almost like a bad thing, like it was an omen. It was something that was off-putting and somehow a straight-up threat to his spirit as far as he found. And Lanyon did find. And what he found? Revulsion. He was revolted by this man. But he was as curious about this guy. For a much darker reason, he's just like, what the fuck is that? Curiosity killed the cat, satisfaction brought it back. You know that saying? I've always heard that. Most of my life I've heard curiosity killed the cat. In the military, I heard the rest of the rhyme that satisfaction brings it back. But no one talks about the fact that cats are usually really cautious and quick to get out of danger. Not everyone makes it, but most cats know how to get the fuck away from shit, because there could be consequences. I'm just putting it out. So, dude was also hella excited. Now, Lanyon found him revolting and curious. He wanted to know where he was from. He wanted to know what he was up to, his origins. Can I find his address using the internet? Like, if he looks for a job, will I have to actually hire him, or does he have a disability? Would he be considered a DEI hire when I get tax breaks from that, says the businessman. I don't know if Lane's a businessman. I just know he's a scientist, just like fucking Jekyll. So who knows? But he definitely wants information, and I feel like if you're not the police, you shouldn't be asking for ID. And then the internet happened, and it's just like, oh, I think I understand now. Dude was also heavily excited, too. He was ready. Oh boy, he was ready. He asked Lanyon if he has his stuff in a really frenzied manner. And we as a reader realizes that this dude is desperate. Moving like a dude in the streets with a warrant, and he's surrounded. And the only person who can help him is a dude from church who judges none. That's how I would feel if I were dude in his shoes. I'm just saying. Dude comes and is just like, and he starts to shake Lanyon, but Lanyon was ready to slap a hoe, and dude backed the fuck up off of him. He did notice that the dude had a touch that felt icy, but Lanyon kept his composure and mentions how dude never introduced himself before coming off like a total fiend that's been drooling for like 4 hours for a fix. This dude is down bad for this junk, man. He really is. Lanyon suggests the two sit down, and he goes first, probably because he's tired, but not as tired as he was, because this dude is freaking him the fuck out. And sitting down helped him calm his nerves, and he was hoping it would calm this guy down. For anyone who's never been around someone going through withdrawals or whatever, this is what that is. And if you're not someone who's experienced with this, you wouldn't know what to make of a person. Like, if you have never experienced being around someone on chemical compounds of strange attributes, and then all of a sudden you're around one who's withdrawing or whatever, your spirit is immediately going to tell you there's something off. I just feel bad for Lanyon. I could tell that he was probably going to strangle the fuck out of Jekyll the next time he saw him. He's going to throttle that man. I think that's what the people with the pretty accents say. He's going to throttle that man. Which, throttle is a really pretty word, I have to say. Not only is it good for cars, it's good for bodily harm. But yeah, that's the fun fact for today. It's British for strangling. Throttling somebody is like strangling them till they pass out. I learned that from the singer Boy George, actually. During VH1's, I think I Love the 80s, or I Love the Society. I can't remember which one it was. So, this dude surprisingly responds back to Lanyon in a polite fashion, addressing Lanyon by name, without being told his name. I mean, yeah. Lanyon is probably well known for sure. It's just an odd detail I noticed. It's just like he immediately knows Lanyon's name without Lanyon having to introduce himself. In fact, I would postulate that this should have registered in Lanyon's mind when it happened. Which is like, how does this dude know my name? Maybe Jekyll told him. But if Jekyll told him, he should have told him, I don't put up with this nonsense. I'll slap a hoe. Like, why would he send somebody like this? You know, those were questions I would have been asking at the time. Because, like, as soon as he would have said my name, I would have been looking at him like, who the fuck are you? So dude responds back in a polite fashion with his name. He apologizes for being in such a hurry for what he had come for. But when he started to mention the drawer, he started grabbing at his neck. It's similar to if you start talking about not a hero, but the heroine of the story in front of a bunch of people who are addicted to it and their noses start sniffing. Same thing. If a person doesn't see you roll a piece of paper up and call it like a crack rock, you say, here's some crack, you can see their face flush because it's the reaction to it. If a person was talking about like H, for example, with someone who's actively using, their nose might actually start to sniffle and they'll start act like they're having symptoms because their body hears that, or they hear that, and immediately their body's like, ooh, are we doing some? It's a weird thing if you never experienced that before. Lanyon starts to feel a little bad for the dude because of how he's behaving and such, and he was curious about why he wanted the damn drawer so bad. It's just like, what was all the stuff inside? Some mafia shit? Lanyon wanted to know. He pointed to the drawer where it was still covered with that sheet that he used when he broke into the cabinet. And of course, little dude got up like the loser he was, full squall mode, arms down, torso forward, running like a goddamn swan. That's just how I pictured it. This is a Final Fantasy VIII optics parkour running, right? And he just leapt for that drawer like he was going to die without it. Had his hands over his heart, all dramatic and stuff. Made this pitiful cry, you know, like something like that. I don't know, like something. Lanyon, the poor guy, told this dude to control himself, and I think dude gave him a super sad smile, or he was burying his teeth. I really can't tell. Desperate, it was a very particularly weird word to use in this frame of mind I had, because it's just like, desperate in what manner? The dude pulls away the sheet and lets out a weird moan. It makes Lanyon feel like he should leave the room. I would have left the room. But then dude is calmed down and asks if Lanyon has a graduated glass he could use. Like, it's a fucking pipe. Lanyon gets up and gets him one. Why he didn't kick this guy the fuck out, I have no idea, but whatever drives the story, I guess. But I actually liked Lanyon. I can't fault Lanyon, because I don't think he was prepared for this. Dude gave Lanyon one of those anime main character smiling nods after he gets the graduated glass and starts mixing the meth. The components together right inside of Lanyon's house without you fucking asking first. Which is something else that bothers me, okay? I thought he was picking this up. Why are we doing this here? In the fucking living room, or all consulting room, but same difference. People only go in there for specific reasons. Some people don't even go in their living rooms because have you ever been to a house where people don't go in the living room? It's just there, like it's a whole decorative plate, like no one's allowed to be in the living room. Why is it called a living room if no living creature can be in it? So now the house is going to be condemned for whatever the fuck he just mixed in the living room. I would be so nettled. So nettled. I do not remember him asking. Did he ask? No, he did not. He said 5 minutes. Not an entire episode of Mr. Wizard in the living room. But I'd be beating ass. So after the maniac gets done cooking up his chemical compounds of strange attributes. See, this is exactly why I'll never get monetized on here, but that's okay. After dude did what he did with the stuff, he turned to Lanyon and asked if he wants to see what happens, or if he wants to leave for his own sanity, whilst also gives him some bullshit about new knowledge that could rock this world. Nigga, you're scratching your neck and hiding from the cops. Like, is the knowledge worth it? Is the knowledge worth it when you feel like you're on the run? And Lanyon is sick of this dude's shit. I wonder why. Lanyon is immediately sick of this dude's shit. It's almost familiar, I'd say. So he tells him to just go on with it because he's come this far, so he might as well see what happens. Why does he want to watch this? This is weird, but this is also a weird story. But why would he want to watch this? I'd be throwing dude out. Technically he does, but we'll get there. He does, but we'll get there. The dude says, and I quote, because this is very important, right? I'm going to do my best not to let me and my brain interrupted, right?
Lanyon, you remember your vows. What follows is under the seal of our profession. And now you who have so long been bound by the narrow and material view, you have denied the virtue or transcendental medicine. You have derided your superiors. Behold!
I had actually said that about me once. Behold. It was just like, what the fuck is this? What century is your vocabulary from, sir? Being all weird and shit. All weird and shit. What does this dude mean by our profession? Who is our? Who is we? Because our would indicate that there is a we subject here, would it not? How would you know what Lanyon's views and beliefs are if this is the first time they met? Who is Lanyon's superior? And who the fuck is this guy? Remember, I had already mentioned before, this dude knew Lanyon's name without even asking. It's important. Well, the dude gulps down the stuff he just concocted and starts bloating up and chains forming and making bone crunching sounds in front of Lanyon, who had to get up and was against the wall screaming for a god who had left the chat as soon as this dude entered the living room. Then, next thing Lanyon knew, it was Henry Jekyll in the living room with them, dressed in the same clothing as the dude. Yeah, I know, most people already know this part of the story, but most people don't know that this was the vital twist of the story. Nobody got it. We'll talk about it later. So, for the next hour, Jekyll told him some stuff, but Lanyon can't write it down because his brain is all chimped out. What information he did leave Utterson was that Henry Jekyll and then Hyde were, in fact, the same person, and Jekyll had confessed to killing Carew. That was the important twist. Oh, and Lanyon's first name is Hastie, which I thought was adorable. Now, back to when this story came out, right? And this is a whole point that I think people miss about this original story, and why the chemical compounds of strange attributes actually plays a big deal in this. But everyone seems to ignore this and think that this dude just likes transforming to be a bad person for the hell of it, not realizing that's not actually their perspective. Back when this story came out, everyone was freaked out about this part. As a kid, when I watched the old cartoon on Nickelodeon, I remember being confused on what was going on. And to be fair, explaining a murder thriller to kids isn't the easiest, even back then. But I did remember I never saw the Lanyon explanation, but did see him transform a lot. I think that's where a lot of confusion lies with the Jekyll Hyde story. The actual unaliving of Carew was actually quick, and I'm not sure if it was explained because I didn't try to see if I could find it on YouTube yet. Actually, I'm gonna go look. Okay, I found the cartoon, and my first impression is this fucking garbage. He didn't, like, and I mean garbage is I was expected to at least follow the actual book. Well, it does follow the storyline and the timeline and the gist of most things, but there is so much different in the cartoon than in the actual book. Like, he doesn't murder like one person, he takes out like 5 people. It followed the basics of the story. There's the old maid who's telling the story, who used to work for Jekyll, who turns out to actually be the maid who saw the Carew murder. She was telling the story as the narrator. I did like that it created a background to what the story was. I like that it took all the events from the book and put them in a more chronological order so you could see the events of things going down as they did. It starts with him talking about the experiment and then actually using it on himself, and then it was all down here. Like, Jekyll didn't separate himself from Hyde unless he could avoid accountability. This story, or this cartoon, makes it sound like he was on some virtuous trip, which, no, he knew exactly what the fuck he was doing. Every man knows exactly what the fuck. Like, let me tell you something that man once told me, right? Men know something is stupid to do, and they'll still do it because they want to do it. This cartoon kind of triggered me, Timbers, a little bit so bad, because there are moments like when Jekyll would try to go for a stroll and become Hyde, and he has to make a run for it before he's caught with the realization that he's known for it is bad. And like that Lanyon had a wife, because to me that makes sense. And honestly, the time of the story does make more sense, and it seems like it would be harder to figure out what the chemical compounds, the strange attributions, hard to figure that one out. And the ending of the cartoon was so disappointing, but the ending gave more of a satisfying display of how the chemical compound of strange attributes can overdose you and take your life away. I can't remember. I'm going to do a review on the cartoon because I'm trying to remember how it actually ended. Because, like, in that version, Hyde wasn't just a body sprawling on the floor twitching. I'm going to have to review it and add it to the storyline because it isn't that bad. I just thought it would follow what the story wrote in this book, right? And it does. It's just different. It does place events in the chronological order, like I said, so you really won't be lost. And honestly, I'm really terrible with dates, so I'm not sure where exactly it started from. So yeah, maybe I'll do that in the future, but for right now, basically the ending of Dr. Lanyon's account of what happened on his side, right? He doesn't talk about what he talked with Jekyll about. But we are going to move on to Jekyll, full statement of the case.